Harbor Freight has been quietly introducing new tool lines, upgrading their cordless systems, and rolling out newer generations of hand tools and storage. In this video, we're looking at 22 Harbor Freight tools you can actually walk into the store and find right now that are worth paying attention to. For each one, we'll explain what the tool is, where it actually helps around the house, garage, or workshop, and what makes it part of Harbor Freight's newer lineup, so you can decide if it's something worth adding to your toolbox. And the first one is 1. Icon Locking Flex Head Ratchet. The Icon Locking Flex Head Ratchet and Bit Set is a compact ratchet kit that comes with multiple interchangeable bit heads stored in a small case. Instead of carrying a full screwdriver set, you attach the bit you need directly to the ratchet handle, whether it's Phillips, flathead, Torx, hex, or other small fasteners. Homeowners often find sets like this useful for assembling furniture, working on appliances, tightening hardware around the house, or handling small repairs where different screw types show up in the same project. Garage DIYers also use it when working on interior car panels or equipment that uses different fastener heads. The ratchet itself has a flex head that can adjust its angle, which helps when you're working in tight spots where a straight handle would be difficult to move. Because the bits are stored together in one case, it keeps everything organized instead of searching through several screwdrivers. It's a small kit, but it ends up handling many of the everyday screws people deal with during repairs. Now, from small fasteners and household fixes, the next tool moves us into Harbor Freight's cordless woodworking lineup. 2. Hercules 20-volt brushless compact router. If you've ever tried to finish the edge of a shelf, table, or cabinet with just sandpaper, you already know how hard it is to get that clean, smooth shape. That's exactly where a tool like this comes in. The Hercules 20-volt brushless compact router is a cordless woodworking tool used to shape and clean up the edges of wood. Homeowners often use it when working on shelves, cabinets, small furniture projects, or even simple garage builds where they want the wood edges to look smoother and more finished, instead of rough and square. Because it runs on the Hercules battery system, you're not dragging a cord around the workbench while moving along the wood. The compact size also makes it easier to control, which helps when you're trimming small pieces or working on detailed edges. It's one of those tools many people don't think they need at first, but once they start doing more woodworking around the house, it quickly becomes part of the regular setup. But before any wood gets shaped or cut, carpenters usually start with something even simpler, making sure their lines and angles are accurate. 3. Doyle 12-inch professional rafter square. Before any board gets cut, most carpenters start with something simple, marking the right line. That's where a rafter square like this comes in. The Doyle 12-inch professional rafter square is a layout tool used to mark straight lines, angles, and measurements on lumber. Homeowners working on small projects like building shelves, fixing fences, framing a shed, or doing simple garage projects often rely on a square like this to guide their cuts, so boards come out straight instead of crooked. You'll usually see it placed along the edge of a board while someone runs a pencil or saw along the side. Because it's made from thicker metal and has clear markings, it holds steady against the wood and helps keep measurements accurate. It's one of those tools that seems simple, but once you start doing more cutting and building around the house, it quickly becomes something you reach for almost every time you pick up a saw. And once the layout is done and the cuts start happening, the next tool helps with the smaller, more precise cuts that regular saws struggle with. 4. Bauer 20-volt cordless oscillating multi-tool. Sometimes a regular saw is simply too big for the job. You might be trimming a small piece of drywall, cutting a notch in wood, or trying to remove old grout from between tiles. That's the kind of situation where a tool like this becomes useful. The Bauer 20-volt cordless oscillating multi-tool is a small cutting and scraping tool that moves its blade back and forth very quickly instead of spinning like a drill or saw. Because of that motion, it can make controlled cuts in tight spaces where larger tools would be difficult to use. Homeowners often use it when working on small repairs around the house, like trimming door frames during flooring projects, cutting drywall patches, or scraping away old caulk or adhesive. Garage DIYers also use it when a precise cut is needed, but there isn't enough space to fit a larger saw. Since it runs on Bauer's cordless battery system, you can move around the house or garage easily without needing an outlet nearby. Before we move further into the list, this is a good moment to pause for a second. If you enjoy tool breakdowns like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now the next tool shifts us into something every garage mechanic eventually needs, a full socket setup. 5. Quinn Master Technician Socket Set. If you've ever started working on a car or motorcycle and realized you're missing the exact socket size you need, you know how frustrating that moment can be. That's usually when people realize a full socket set becomes almost necessary. The Quinn Master Technician Socket Set is a large mechanic socket collection designed to cover most of the common sizes used when working on vehicles, equipment, or household repairs. Instead of buying sockets one at a time, sets like this give you a wide range of both metric and standard sizes in one case. For garage mechanics and homeowners who like doing their own maintenance, this type of set becomes useful for jobs like brake work, removing engine components, assembling equipment, or tightening hardware around the house. Having the sizes organized in one case also saves time when you're working, instead of searching for the right socket. It's the kind of setup many people end up using regularly once they start doing more of their own repairs. Now, once the sockets are ready, the next tool on the list is something many DIYers rely on for making the actual cuts when building or repairing things around the house. 6. Hercules 20-volt brushless circular saw. When you're cutting plywood, trimming lumber, or building something in the backyard, a circular saw is usually the tool that does most of the heavy cutting. The Hercules 20-volt brushless circular saw is a cordless cutting tool designed for jobs like cutting framing lumber, trimming boards for shelves, or breaking down large sheets of plywood. Homeowners often use it for projects such as building small decks, fixing fences, or working on garage storage setups. Because it runs on the Hercules battery platform, you don't have to drag an extension cord across the driveway or yard while working. The brushless motor is part of Harbor Freight's newer Hercules system, which focuses on giving more consistent power and longer runtime compared to older designs. For many DIY builders, a circular saw like this becomes one of the most used power tools in the garage because it handles so many common cutting tasks, but not every job requires a big cutting tool. Sometimes the work involves much smaller screws and delicate parts. 7. Icon Professional Mini Screwdriver Set. Not every repair involves big bolts or large screws. Sometimes the job is much smaller, tightening screws on electronics, adjusting small parts on tools, or working on items where a regular screwdriver simply feels too large. The Icon Professional Mini Screwdriver Set is designed for those smaller tasks. These are precision screwdrivers used for things like fixing glasses, opening small electronics, tightening tiny screws on appliances, or making adjustments on equipment that uses fine fasteners. Homeowners often end up using tools like this more than expected, because so many everyday items now come with small screws. Remote controls, battery covers, laptops, toys, and other household devices. Because the handles are smaller and designed for precision, they give better control when working on delicate parts where too much force could damage the screw or the device. And once the smaller screws are handled, the next tool moves us back to something a lot of homeowners deal with: electrical work and wire handling. 8. Doyle High-Leverage Linesman Pliers. If you've ever worked with electrical wires, installed a light fixture, or repaired wiring in the garage, you already know how often pliers like this get used. The Doyle High-Leverage Linesman Pliers are designed for gripping, twisting, and cutting wire. Electricians use them constantly, but homeowners run into the same need when replacing outlet, fixing extension cords, installing light switches, or doing small electrical repairs around the house. The thicker jaws give you a strong grip on wire, while the cutting edge near the hinge helps slice through copper or smaller cables without needing a separate cutter. That extra leverage makes it easier to twist wires together when connecting them inside electrical boxes. For anyone who does occasional electrical work at home, this becomes one of those tools that sits in the toolbox but gets pulled out often. Now, while those pliers handle wires and electrical work, the next tool is something many people use when finishing wood surfaces and smoothing rough boards. 9. Bauer Random Orbit Sander. The Bauer Random Orbit Sander is a handheld sanding tool designed to smooth wood surfaces quickly and more evenly than hand sanding. It spins and moves in small circular patterns at the same time, which helps remove rough spots without leaving the swirl marks that some basic sanders can leave behind. Homeowners often use tools like this when refinishing furniture, preparing wood before painting, or smoothing boards for shelves and small woodworking projects in the garage. Instead of spending a long time sanding by hand, this tool speeds up the process and helps the surface come out cleaner. Once wood is smooth and projects start coming together, the next challenge people often face is dealing with bolts that simply refuse to loosen. 10. Pittsburgh Pro Breaker Bar. Anyone who has worked on a car, lawn equipment, or even old outdoor hardware has run into that one stubborn bolt that refuses to move. You pull on a regular ratchet, but it just doesn't have enough leverage. That's where a breaker bar comes in. The Pittsburgh Pro Breaker Bar is a long-handled tool designed to loosen tight bolts and nuts that normal ratchets struggle with. Because the handle is longer, it gives you more leverage, which helps break loose lug nuts, suspension bolts, or rusted hardware without putting too much strain on smaller ratchets. Garage mechanics often use breaker bars when removing car wheels or working on parts that haven't been touched in years. Homeowners also find them useful when dealing with outdoor equipment, trailers, or heavy-duty fasteners around the house. And before we move to the next tool, if you're finding this list helpful so far, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel and lets us keep bringing more tool breakdowns like this. Now, once that stubborn bolt finally loosens, the next tool helps you drive fasteners quickly and with much more power. 11. Hercules 20-volt brushless impact driver. Once bolts or screws start going back in, this is the kind of tool that speeds the whole job up. The Hercules 20-volt brushless impact driver is a cordless driving tool designed for installing long screws, lag bolts, and other fasteners that would normally take a lot of effort with a regular drill. Instead of simply spinning, it delivers short bursts of rotational force, which helps drive screws into wood, metal brackets, or framing much more easily. Homeowners often use tools like this when building deck, assembling shelves, installing heavy brackets, or working on larger DIY projects in the garage. It's also popular with people doing fence repairs or structural work where a basic screwdriver or drill would struggle with longer screws. Because it runs on the Hercules cordless platform, you can move around a project without worrying about extension cords while still having enough power for tougher fasteners. But sometimes the challenge isn't tightening bolts, it's tightening them to the correct amount, especially when working on vehicles or equipment. 12. Quinn Digital Torque Wrench. When you're working on vehicles, tightening a bolt too much can be just as bad as leaving it loose. That's why mechanics rely on torque wrenches. The Quinn Digital Torque Wrench is designed to tighten bolts to a specific amount of force. Instead of guessing or tightening by feel, the wrench measures the torque and alerts you when you reach the correct setting. This is especially important when working on parts like wheel lug nuts, engine components, or suspension hardware where proper torque matters. Garage mechanics often use torque wrenches during brake jobs, tire rotations, or when reinstalling parts that require precise tightening. For homeowners who maintain their own vehicles, a tool like this helps make sure bolts are secure without risking damage from over-tightening. Once bolts are tightened correctly though, sometimes you still need a tool that can deliver a solid strike without damaging parts. 13. Icon Dead Blow Hammer. Sometimes you need to hit a part to move it, but using a regular hammer can cause damage or send the tool bouncing back. The Icon Dead Blow Hammer is designed to deliver a solid strike without that rebound effect. Inside the hammer head are small weighted materials that absorb the bounce when you hit something. That means the force goes directly into the object instead of the hammer bouncing back in your hand. Garage mechanics often use dead blow hammers when loosening stuck parts, tapping components into place, or working on suspension pieces. Homeowners also find them useful when assembling furniture, adjusting parts that need a firm tap, or working on projects where a metal hammer might leave marks. Because it doesn't bounce back like a regular hammer, it gives better control when you're trying to move something carefully. But not every job involves tapping parts loose. Sometimes the work involves cutting through materials that ordinary saws can't reach. 14. Bauer 20-volt cordless reciprocating saw. When you're tearing something out instead of building it, this is usually the tool people reach for. The Bauer 20-volt cordless reciprocating saw is designed for demolition and rough cutting. The blade moves back and forth quickly, allowing it to cut through wood, nails, pipes, and even thin metal depending on the blade installed. Homeowners often use tools like this when removing old shelves, cutting out damaged boards, trimming tree branches, or taking apart structures during renovation projects. Garage DIYers also rely on it when cutting metal brackets, bolts, or pipes that are difficult to reach with other saws. Because it runs on the Bauer cordless battery system, it's easier to move around outdoor projects, garages, or renovation spaces without worrying about cords getting in the way. But while that saw handles cutting through materials, the next tool focuses on cutting something much tougher: thick wire and metal. 15. Doyle heavy-duty bolt cutters. Sometimes the material you're dealing with is simply too thick for normal cutters or pliers. That's when a tool like bolt cutters becomes useful. The Doyle heavy-duty bolt cutters are designed to cut through thicker metal items like chains, heavy wire, fencing, and certain types of bolt. The long handles give extra leverage, allowing you to apply more force without needing excessive strength. Homeowners often use bolt cutters when working on fencing projects, cutting old padlocks, trimming thick wire for outdoor repairs, or removing metal hardware that smaller cutters can't handle. People maintaining gates, cages, or yard enclosures also run into situations where this type of cutter becomes necessary. Because of the longer handles and hardened cutting jaws, tools like this make jobs possible that regular pliers simply can't manage. After cutting through metal like that, the next tool returns to something every garage mechanic ends up using constantly: a reliable wrench set. 16. Pittsburgh Pro Raised Panel SAE and Metric Combination Wrench Set. Not every bolt can be reached with a socket. Sometimes there simply isn't enough space to fit a ratchet, and that's when a wrench set becomes necessary. The Pittsburgh Pro Raised Panel Combination Wrench Set includes both standard and metric sizes, giving homeowners and garage mechanics the common wrench sizes used for working on vehicles, equipment, and everyday repairs. One end of each wrench is open for quick positioning, while the other end is a boxed ring that grips the bolt more securely when you need more turning power. People often use sets like this when working in tight spaces around engines, assembling equipment, fixing bicycles, adjusting machinery, or handling general repairs around the house where sockets can't reach. Because it includes multiple sizes in one set, it saves you from constantly searching for the right wrench whenever a different bolt size appears. Now, while that set helps with tightening and loosening bolts, the next tool on the list is something homeowners often use for cleaning up around the garage and workshop. 17. Bauer 20-volt cordless leaf blower. After cutting, sanding, or working on projects in the garage, one thing you quickly notice is how much dust, wood chips, and debris start collecting around the workspace. The Bauer 20-volt cordless leaf blower isn't just for clearing leaves outside. Many homeowners use it to quickly blow dust out of the garage, clear sawdust off workbenches, or clean up driveways and patios after finishing a project. Because it runs on the Bauer battery system, you can grab it and clean up quickly without dragging out extension cords or larger equipment. It's especially useful after woodworking, yard work, or small construction projects where debris spreads across the floor. A quick blast from a blower like this can clear an entire workspace in seconds, which is why many people end up using it far more often than they expected. But cleaning up the workspace is one thing. Sometimes the job involves reaching into tight areas to grab or bend small parts. 18. Icon long nose pliers. When you're working in tight spaces, sometimes your fingers simply can't reach the part you're trying to grab. That's where long nose pliers become useful. The Icon long nose pliers are designed with extended narrow jaws that allow you to reach into confined areas to grip, bend, or pull small components. Garage mechanics often use them when working behind engine parts, pulling clips, or grabbing wires that are tucked deep inside tight areas. Homeowners also run into situations where these pliers help, like adjusting small hardware, holding tiny parts while tightening screws, or pulling objects out of spaces that are difficult to reach with regular pliers. Because of the long, narrow design, they give you better control when working on delicate or hard-to-reach pieces. But tools don't always stay on the bench. Sometimes you need a stable surface to work on in the first place. 19. Folding workbench. Sometimes the biggest problem during a project isn't the tool, it's having a place to work. The folding workbench is a portable work surface designed to hold boards, tools, or small projects while you cut, drill, or assemble parts. Homeowners often use it when working in the driveway, backyard, or garage, where a permanent workbench might not be available. The folding design means it can be set up quickly when you need it and stored away when the project is finished. People commonly use it for cutting lumber, holding materials steady while drilling, or assembling furniture and other DIY projects. For many homeowners, something like this becomes the temporary workstation that supports almost every project they do. Once you have a stable surface to work on, the next tool focuses on handling bolts in spaces where larger wrenches struggle to fit. 20. Quinn Stubby Ratcheting Wrench Set. There are times when even a normal wrench is too long to fit where you need it. Tight engine spaces, small machinery, and packed mechanical areas can make turning a bolt frustrating. The Quinn Stubby Ratcheting Wrench Set is designed for those tight spaces. The shorter length allows the wrench to fit where a full-size wrench cannot, while the ratcheting end lets you keep turning a bolt without constantly removing and repositioning the tool. Garage mechanics often rely on stubby wrenches when working around engines, exhaust components, or brackets where clearance is limited. Homeowners also run into similar situations when repairing equipment, bicycles, or appliances where bolts are tucked into narrow areas. Because the ratcheting mechanism keeps the tool engaged with the fastener, it saves time and effort during repairs. But once tools start adding up, the next problem many people run into is where to keep everything organized. 21. 5-drawer Mechanic's Cart Slate Gray. Once tools start piling up in the garage, the next challenge is keeping them organized while you're working. That's where a mechanic's cart like this becomes useful. The 30-inch 5-drawer mechanic's cart is designed to store and move your tools around the garage while you're working on a project. Instead of walking back and forth to a toolbox, you can keep the tools you're using right beside you and roll the cart wherever the job takes you. Garage mechanics often use carts like this when working on vehicles because sockets, ratchets, pliers, and screwdrivers can all stay organized in the drawers while the top tray holds the tools you're actively using. Homeowners also find them helpful when working on larger DIY projects, where several tools are needed at the same time. Because it's built with multiple drawers and rolling wheels, it helps keep tools organized and easy to reach instead of scattered across benches or the floor. But once a tool cart starts filling up, many people eventually realize they need something even bigger to store the rest of their tools. 22. Daytona Super Duty Professional Car Jack. Anyone who does their own tire rotations, brake work, or basic car maintenance eventually needs a reliable way to lift the vehicle safely. That's where a floor jack like this comes in. The Daytona Super Duty Car Jack is designed to lift vehicles off the ground so you can access the wheels, suspension, or underside of the car. The low-profile design allows it to slide under cars that sit closer to the ground, which helps when working on sedans or lower vehicles where standard jacks might not fit. Garage mechanics often rely on floor jacks for jobs like tire changes, brake replacements, or inspecting parts under the vehicle. Homeowners who like maintaining their own cars also find them useful because they make basic vehicle maintenance much easier compared to using the small emergency jack that comes with most cars. With the long handle providing leverage and the rolling wheels helping position it under the car, tools like this become one of the most important pieces of equipment in a home garage. And that wraps up 22 Harbor Freight tools that are worth checking out the next time you walk into the store. If you enjoyed this list, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more practical tool breakdowns and garage gear guides.